Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where I will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships and how to overcome them so that you can move through your pain and get to the kind of healthy relationships you want, need, and deserve. I'm Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based in California. While I hope that you find this podcast educational and informational, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Also, due to the nature of the podcast, some of the information presented on the show can be sensitive to some of my listeners, so please note that listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome back. Happy holidays to you guys. It's been a minute. So since I've been able to do a podcast and, I have so many, things going on right now. So this is probably one of my busiest times of the year, but nonetheless, I have not forgotten about doing a podcast. I love chatting with you guys. I have a very special show planned for today with a guest that I've had on my show 2 or 3 times now. I think actually this makes the 3rd time. So today's guest is going to be Dr. Sherrie Campbell. And I wanted to bring Dr. Sherrie on. She and I we've talked quite a few times on the show, and I just love, again, talking with Dr. Sherrie, as she and I are kindred spirits in terms of, being the folks that have kind of lived the experience of abuse and who just get it. But I was excited to talk to her because I know that Dr. Sherrie's new book is about to be released, and I wanted to show her love and support around her book, and just have her join me on the platform and talk all about it, and we didn't go into the book, so we won't be giving things away. I just hit on certain points within the book, so it's still readable. We didn't do any type of spoilers or anything like that. But I think we gave just enough so that you guys can be excited about reading it too. And without giving too much of the show away, we talked a lot about emotional abuse and healing from that, especially within the family, the context of the family, and just again the healing process. Dr. Sherrie's book is titled Adult Survivors of Emotionally Abusive Parents. And so I think you can go ahead and pre-order that by the date of this release. You can go ahead and pre-order that on Amazon. So it hasn't, I don't think you can actually get it yet, but you can go ahead and pre-order. So it won't, it'll drop pretty soon after this podcast airs. So let's go ahead and get into the show with Dr. Sherrie. Hello and welcome to the show, Dr. Sherrie.
Thank you, Natalie. I love being on your show. You're one of my favorite humans. You endorsed my new book.
I love it. Yes, I'm so excited for you and all of your endeavors, and you are one of my favorites too. But for the people that don't know you, tell us who you are, what you do, and the passion behind your work, because you've been on here. This is your 3rd time now, so you're a veteran.
3rd time. I love being a veteran. I gotta have you on my show soon.
Yeah.
So I'm probably the leading expert in the world on cutting ties with toxic family. I just did my first TEDx talk. That was the most horrifying and exhilarating experience of my life. It was so scary. But speaking for us introverts can be rough, but it was fantastic. Incredible experience. I crushed it. So I was happy about that.
Good for you.
Each book of mine, what I've noticed in my journey of writing is I'm a survivor. So I think survivor knowledge is probably far more valid than my books that I read throughout the PhD. They helped, but they didn't solve my problems or help me in this area. So I think I started kind of globally with the whole family in my first couple books, and I'm watching my pattern as I go down, that this new book is focused specifically on parents and being in and under emotional abuse or coercive control.
Yeah.
And we have a hard time telling parents in our society when they need to do better. I see so many trials in law and crime. A guy just only got 5 years in prison for putting his adopted child in a cage and making him use the restroom in a bucket because he was in the military, and the judge decided, well, he was in the military and it was strict, so maybe he didn't know he was abusing his kid.
Yeah.
So he only gets 5 years in prison, and I think that's an atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
He was facing up to 40. Prosecution wanted 14. I've seen 2 children testify against their parents for murder this year, Lori Vallow's child, and then Letitia Stauch's daughter. So this is everywhere, but yet we still just delete it because our social cohesion is reliant upon the belief that all parents love, adore, and respect their children. So to hold on
Absolutely.
to this, we blatantly ignore the suffering of children to avoid bringing shame upon the parents who raise them.
Mm.
So we either have the extreme of we're in court, and then people go, well, that's the minority. Well, they don't really know that coercive abuse is now punishable by the law in 5 European countries.
Mm-hmm.
So people are waking up, and I think that our culture and country also needs to wake up that emotional abuse is often far off from often more deadly than physical abuse long term.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would totally agree with you. For Tell us what a survivor is. In your opinion, what's a survivor?
Somebody who has lived through a tremendous amount of trauma, who probably wanted to give up many times along the way, then had to be a disruptor and a rebel to survive
Mm-hmm.
and break boundaries and open minds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't stay the victim where we don't heal, we don't look, we don't disrupt, we stay. So I think, an innate rebel in me. And thank God, because as being the black sheep of my family, it ended up being
Yeah.
his greatest gift long term for me.
Yeah.
I think being a survivor is actually having survived it and living well and living joyously and completely or wholly in the today
Mm-hmm.
from the yesterday.
I love it. I love it. And thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk about it. And congratulations on the TEDx. I did see that. And kudos to you. It's good to see you doing so many amazing things. And it's always refreshing to talk to you because, you know, as long as I've been doing podcasting, people don't realize the other side of podcasting if you interview guests. Not everybody is equipped to talk about it, right? There's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
guests in interviews that I've had to kind of let go because it just doesn't flow as well. But it's good to know that this is someone, you are someone who didn't just take a course
Mm-mm. No, ma'am.
overnight
Yeah.
and call yourself an expert. That
Yeah.
you're
No,
you're
I
you're true
lived
to
the
this.
course.
That's
I
it.
lived the
That's
course.
it.
I lived
That's
with
it.
a final exam around every corner, and I wasn't allowed to know what the
Yes.
topic was. That's my life.
Yeah.
That was how it was living there.
Yes, it was. And that's how it is. Tell us, Dr. Sherrie, about your new book. What can we
So,
expect?
yes, the new book dismantles so many cultural norms around what respect is, um,
Mhm.
maladaptive guilt as opposed to just healthy guilt. It
Mhm.
unpacks the hypocrisies of the parental system, how
Mhm.
leaving a toxic family has every single element of leaving a cult. I think my favorite part of the book is I talk about no man's land. It's that space between being estranged and the new life and all that has to happen there. It's a very critical movement out of, and it's the most tempting, and you're the most vulnerable to fracturing and going back
Yeah.
at that time. And we don't
Yeah.
want to stay stuck there. We need to get active in that space to save our own lives. And I think I went to no man's land a few times prior to actually being
Mhm.
able to get out. And then when I was there, and at the time that I actually got out, I kind of was still so focused on what abuses were coming my way from the cult and what they were up to, what the tricks they were playing, the sadistic nature and savage nature of what they were trying to do to break me. So I didn't start really living the new life for a few years because I was so concerned with how to prepare for the next bomb. And then I
Okay.
realized, like, I'm here because I actually wanted to live something different. And I need to let this go now that I've learned it. And I see that they can't really destroy me. And this isn't quite as unfamiliar anymore because we go through defamiliarization. We don't know that what we're leaving
Yep.
for is going to be better. So if
Yep.
it's not better, then we can't go back
Yep.
because we were bad, so that's probably my favorite part. And that, every superhero has a valiant warrior, an enemy. And we always in superhero movies, we think he's not going to make it. We think the superheroes, he's not, the support isn't coming, his powers aren't working. And that's how it is. And yet he does always make it. So
Yeah.
we can also make it.
I think you bring up some important points. When you're going through when you're doing the type of work that we're doing, there's a lot of, self-proclaimed gurus and coaches and things like that now, but like you said, you're one of, you're the one and only that's kind of doing this work. So when you talk about, superheroes and things like that, can you talk about maybe who your role model was or who you maybe like found comfort in, who maybe led the way for you to be able to do what you were able to do? Was there like a role model or maybe someone
Many.
that you saw that did what you did in terms of the total cutoff?
Nope. I never saw anyone do it. And
Yeah.
I'm so far the only one who writes about it. So that journey was kind
Yeah.
of lonely because there weren't experts. There was the emotionally immature parent. There's a
Mhm.
lot of the every parent now is called narcissistic. I
Yep.
don't believe that. My mom is histrionic and borderline. So
Mhm.
I don't, and she's antisocial. I mean, I don't, does she have some narcissism? Yes, but it's over labeled
It is.
and then it makes it misunderstood.
Yes.
Um, but I'll say that Maya Angelou came to me at 16 in the Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Good book.
Um, and she has been someone I've always admired her work. My
Mm.
favorite poem on earth is I Rise. I have a tattoo of it with a phoenix.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that Princess Diana was someone at some
Oh,
point that I
yeah.
looked up to, another disruptor. Um, for some time in my life, I was in like eighth grade when Madonna came out. Um, I don't
Mhm.
love all parts of her, but I do love that she doesn't let people keep her down. So her ability to say no was very inspiring.
Mm.
Um, then I caught on to an artist named India Ari, and I really
Mhm.
love her music and one of her songs, No
Mhm.
one has the power to hurt you like your kin. So there's an acknowledgement. I Little House on the Prairie was really masterful for me because I got to pretend I had a family, but I would say
Yeah.
my very first role model was Little Orphan Annie.
Ah, who also had a very tumultuous, upbringing in her real life.
I used to wish that someone could look into my life like Grace found
Mhm.
Annie and
Mhm.
rescue me because I lived with the heart of an
Mhm.
orphan. Um,
Mhm.
and A Hard Knock Life was on repeat on my record player when I was
Yeah.
little. The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow. She was so much more fearless and hopeful. And another one that I really loved was Pippi Longstocking because
Mhm.
she was alone all the time because her dad was a pirate, but she had this ability to be alone and be savage and confident, and that was none of what I had. So I really fantasized about being those two little girls when I was little, and I would say
Mhm.
those are my first inspirations. And then as an adult, I have found more and more. But as far as anyone who's walked in my shoes, I did not find them until I put my book out, and they haven't
Yeah.
any books. There are a lot of people who now say it's okay to cut ties with family in the narcissistic community. They're catching on. But I can tell when someone's really lived it. I think it's different living it as a child than being married to a narcissistic man and watching
Absolutely.
the person hurt your children.
Absolutely.
There's something just fundamentally more painful when it's your parent doing it
Mm-hmm.
to you and you are not loved and you
Mm-hmm.
know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, I put the footprints in the snow on this one on my own. I didn't have anyone before me.
That's unfortunate, but I think, a lot of the themes that you're sort of taking from these characters of Annie, Orphan Annie and Pippi Longstocking are very common among people who've lived it. That ideology that, one day we'll be saved and rescued. I remember, I've been in my 40s and have had that.
Yeah.
That, oh, they'll come and get me, or, that kind of thing. And then it's like one day you wake up, no one's coming.
No one's coming. And I have
Yeah.
weird moments like,
Yeah.
I've been having, I don't have health issues, but I'm having some issues. So I had to have a surgery and it was going to be exploratory.
Mm.
So they're going to scope me first. And they're like, well, who is here in your family that we could let them know that if we need to go beyond scoping, that we just
That's
have their
hard.
hair and wear and we have some permissions. And I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so
About that.
ooh, that ew, like that hurts. And not because I'm hurting over the personalities of the parents that
Yeah.
I have or my sibling, but just hurting that the shock on their faces. I'm not putting my 18-year-old daughter in that scenario. I'm not married to my boyfriend. So I'm like, I'll just sign my life away. You're an
Yeah.
MD. We'll figure it
You make
out.
it. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's scenarios like that I don't expect to run into, that I run into. And that's when I'm like, oh, ew,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good. I've adjusted to not having them for the holidays. It's a gift.
Mhm.
I've adjusted to so many things over the years. So for the listener, it's so awkward at first, but
Yeah.
you do adjust to it and people
Do.
slowly adjust to your story.
Mm.
Um, and over time, people who really didn't think I was doing the right thing now have sort of no question. It took
Absolutely.
7 years
Yeah.
to get there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and you bring up some interesting nuances, things that I too, in terms of medical, a person to contact in emergency, I too have recently been challenged with that same question. And it's like, oh, and you kind of do power through it, and you do get to this place where there is this peace, there's this acceptance. But I want to talk about the other point that you mentioned, which is where you're kind of vacillating.
Yeah,
Like,
no man's land is rough.
yeah.
And I had 3 goes at it. I guess third time's a charm.
Mhm. How
You're
old were you when
oh
you
God.
finally, yeah.
Well, I was 45 when I was completely out. I was
uh,
42. I cut ties with my father and brother. My father, brother, and mother basically gangbanged me on my 42nd birthday over my first book. So
Oh, yeah,
yes,
that's so
11 years old.
interesting that you mentioned that, because again, that is a very similar scenario that I've had.
Yeah. Yep. This was my very first one. They knew I'd been
Yeah.
writing it. It was self-published. Um,
Mhm. Mm,
my mom helped financially support it, but
mm.
it had been published for 6 months, but they chose my birthday. They chose it.
Go
So
off.
it was lovely. So
Mm. Wow.
I had cut ties with all 3 of them at that point. And then my life fell apart in some other ways in my love life, and I was devastated. And I
Yeah.
reached back home to her. And then that took another 3 years. And she is sadistic. I mean, the things that she has done to me um, prior to me leaving and through my leaving, it's it's sadistic. And I can't imagine thinking that way about my worst enemy, but let alone like
Mhm.
my daughter. I
Mhm.
just can't fathom what is wrong with her. And I'm glad I'm not sick enough to understand how these people get the way they are. The research does not give us good answers, period, because we really don't know. And the answers don't make a difference. Understanding her has never justified her abuse of me. So it was just not as powerful as I thought. It was accepting her and my
Mhm.
and my father for exactly who they are, which is
Mm.
their abusers. I would say also in no man's land, one of the trickiest things is how many people jump in to support our abusers, that they're worried about what our abusers need to heal. And they get so concerned with our reconciliation. I'm thinking if I had half the support that my abusers do, I'd be way further along the road. And here I am trying to explain myself to people supporting my abusers, not even thinking about my trauma, not even thinking about the
Mhm.
consequences of what that would be long term. But
Mhm.
you really can't do that, Sherrie. I mean, we need to figure out what's wrong over there and we need to help her or him. No, we don't. I've been trying to do that for 45 years. That's four
Yeah.
and a half decades of trying with this family. I paid my dues, and those people, I let them go too. And some of them have circled back and we've been
Yeah.
able to repair, but no thanks. Don't go
Yeah.
watch a victim and then support the abuser. That just it makes no sense. And it seems not to happen in very many other communities, but mostly parent to child.
Absolutely.
And
And
also I would
that's
say sibling to sibling, but
mhm. Mhm. I would say, the phenomenon that you described is, you can oftentimes tell who the victim is because the victim is the one that's the least likely to get the support. They're oftentimes rushing to the abuser's side.
yes, it's so twisted. So you have to make it through no man's land. I was naive to think that I would just be, I was kind of lucky in that she cut me off. So I just didn't mend
Mhm.
the fence anymore, which was always my job.
Mhm.
But it was, I lost so many more relationships because they moved over to support that. And I'm like, if I was lying, if I was a liar, first of all, I mean, I'm kind of complimented that you think I'm this creative to make this
Yeah.
story up. So I don't know, thanks, but I'm not that creative, so can't take the award.
Yeah.
But if I was lying, how would I be me? How would I be on a TEDx stage? How would I have this huge following if I was just lying? Because lies get exposed. They
They
get
do.
exposed. And there are still people that can't believe my story, especially if
Mm.
they know my family and they know me. No, can't be.
Mm.
Can.
It
Is.
yeah, it is, and it's really not your battle anymore. And I think that's a
No.
good place to be when you get
Yes.
on the other side of it, is it's
Yeah.
not my business, this is not my battle, I don't even have to
But you
spin my
lose a
wheels.
lot. You
You
lose a
do,
lot of people you
you
don't
do,
imagine you're going to lose. And
you
so
do.
that makes no man's land. You start to go, I'm going to be all alone without any support.
Mhm.
And that is powerful enough because we tend to choose attachment and familiarity over freedom and a lack of
Uh-huh.
familiarity.
Yeah,
So that is hard because we do tend to lose. That fear is powerful enough to get us to go back until you just recognize it's a lesser evil to lose everything, have everyone think you're this horrible, bad person than it is to go back to that abuse.
for sure. It's
And
better to have nobody than to have a knife in your back.
that's right. And I think it's a process to get there.
Mhm. It is definitely a
Yes.
process. Can you talk to us about your process, specifically as you were vacillating? What was it that like propelled the momentum forward for you as opposed to keeping you in that state of like confusion or in between?
Their post separation abuse and then the secondary abuse that I just talked about all on my own show.
Combine.
those two things made it so clear to me that I was not hallucinating my abuse.
Mhm.
That these people, if I wasn't going to stay in the cult, they were going to destroy me.
Mm.
And that was their intention. And that was so clear to me that I was like,
Wow.
this just is, I'm so clear now, I can let go. And I didn't have guilt and I didn't have anything. I became over time with a lot of therapy, a lot of journal writing, writing my books, very indifferent. I don't hate them. I don't hate
Mhm.
anyone on that side. I certainly don't like them.
Yeah,
And I don't keep people in my life I don't like. I don't care who
absolutely.
you are.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I don't suggest anybody do that. And I
Yes,
think families should be exempt
I
because of a
agree. I agree.
process was a lot of hard work, a lot of self-examination, uh, doing the brave thing when I didn't feel brave at all.
Mhm.
I was doing the brave thing, not very bravely,
Mhm.
because I felt like I didn't have a choice. I truly felt like I didn't have a choice. So there was no choice to go that way. Quitting is not a part of my DNA, so I certainly wasn't going to quit, but I didn't, it became very clear to me I had no choice. If I wanted to be happy, I didn't have a choice to go back.
Amen to that. And I think you bring up an excellent point about it doesn't look good to the outsider. It's not easy. It's not glamorous. You're oftentimes people talk shit about you. You know, they think poorly of you. You lose a lot of
Yeah,
people.
you.
So you kind of look like that person in the room that no one wants to be friends with for a long time.
Long time. And you know what I've learned is like when I take the trash out on Wednesday nights, I don't go back outside and check to see if my trash is okay. So if the trash takes itself out,
Mhm.
then let it go. And
Mhm.
whoever is out there checking on the trash, then they're trashy too.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
had to learn like, I don't need trash. I'm thankful she cut me off. I'm thankful that my brother cut me off. I'm thankful my father cut me off at the end of the day because I didn't really have to take the trash out. It took itself out
Mm.
as a manipulation to make me feel so abandoned that I'd go out and sit on the trash pile because I used to do it all the time.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
don't do that anymore.
Mm.
I didn't want to.
And you shouldn't have to.
No,
You should have never been put in that position.
right.
In your family, how many siblings are there?
One.
So you have just you and a brother,
Yes.
and
And as
you're the
soon as
black
I
sheep.
became, yes, he was the golden child, still is. Um, he and my mother are so enmeshed. It's terrifying. Um, he does a lot of things that she colludes with him on that she shouldn't be, that are very bad, bad things. And they hurt other people very badly because um, a certain person in my family became the scapegoat once I left because sick families, they have to have one. And that person reached out to me, to which that person is blocked.
Mhm.
But I saw that I had a blocked voice message, which I didn't know you could get those. So I listened and I entertained that for
Yeah,
about 24 hours. And I recognized she was just trying to use me
to get
to
back.
to be involved in a legal situation, to which my mother was heavily involved. My mom's very antisocial. She's so devious. So not only have things not changed back there, but they've gotten worse. So there could only be, according to my sibling, one star in our family. I was the loser kid. No one expected me to succeed for certain. I was failing school. I had an eating disorder. I was a fucking mess. Um, so as soon as I started succeeding, he cut me off long ago. But for him to feel secure in my family, he was the quarterback of the team around my first
Mm.
book, and I feel sorry for him. They've
Mm.
allowed him to be a really horrible human being, and he's pretty charming externally. but he's a horrible person. And I know
Um,
he knows it.
mm,
Um, but he's enabled to be that way by her. I do see him as a victim.
really?
He's a toxic adult child
Mm-hmm.
raised by a toxic adult child. But he has done so many bad things now. There's no looking in the mirror for him. So I lost him, but I do think he's a victim. I think he was enabled and empowered to be this way
Sure,
by the parents.
sure. Let me ask you this. Do you think it was because he was a man or a boy?
Absolutely. My mom hates women.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Bingo.
both world-class athletes. He ended up going pro in his. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to think he's world famous for some reason. His career ended in 1995. I can tell you, I'm not going to say his name, but if I did, you wouldn't know him.
Mm-hmm.
So he spends his life going to alumni events and signing autographs. And I don't know. I'm glad my defining moments are now. I would
Surpassing
certainly
that,
rather
yeah.
be on a TEDx stage than
Mm-hmm.
running all over a line, um, and
Mm,
making a difference. I my mom just really does not like women. And I think that him being a boy and being a really shiny penny, and all the athletic, I mean, she would wear shirts around that would say his name, blank blank's mom,
mm-hmm.
so she got a lot of ego feeds from him. And no
Mm.
doubt he's an incredible athlete, no doubt.
Wow. Wow. Well, and that happens quite often where girls are shunned or deprioritized, and that's across, cultures.
Cultures, absolutely. Hmm. Yeah, and she's been married 4 times, and my dad was married 5.
Oops.
So dad certainly didn't value women, and my mom doesn't value connection. So she can't not have a man. And her son is really, my brother is, he's a victim. He is.
Yeah.
He's an
Yeah.
asshole, but
Yeah,
he's a
but he's still a victim. Yeah. And most everyone in those types of family dynamics are.
yeah.
Um, you know, I want to I want to bring up a moment of truth in your book, and I won't, give too much away, but you know, you it's your moment of truth. It's your first one, and it says that children should not have to earn love. They should be able to rest in it.
Yeah. I had someone come on my social media and say, well, what if they're just emotionally immature and stunted? And if we could just fill that up for them, that, then we could help heal them. And my answer to this person was, um, I don't know what family member you're talking about. Because she said, I don't think they're all evil and mean. I'm like, well, my post doesn't even say either
Yeah,
of those words. But if you're talking about the child parent dynamic, it is fundamentally not a child's responsibility to fill the love cup of their parents, to
yes,
build their self worth. Children should not be parentified. And
correct.
if they are immature and stunted, but it is destroying the life of the child and making the child carry the relationship, this is abuse. Whatever word you want to use, it's still abuse. There's no excuse for it.
Mhm.
They are decades older. They're decades older. It should be that children have rights and parents have obligations. They
Yes.
chose to bring us here.
Yeah,
So they
that's
should
it.
be obligated to raise us, love us, keep us safe, and prepare us for the world. But that's not how it is. It's children have obligations and parents have rights. That is not how it should be.
It is. I would agree with you there, but there's a tremendous amount of support for it in the other direction. You see it every day, I'm sure, where
Oh
you
man, I have my bullies online. These rejected parents are something else. They have started estrangement groups, and they come on my page, they blast me, they blast other experts like me.
Yeah.
And I look at the way they're acting out
Yeah.
and I'm like, and you wonder why you got cut off? I have questions. The entitlement, you don't own your children. I
You
don't
do not.
own my daughter. She's not mine. She's not transactional. She's not a commodity. She's a human being and I'm supposed to love her. In Adult Survivors, the book previous to this, I coined a new term called foundational anxiety
Mm,
because I'm a nervous person and I don't fit into anything in the DSM. So I don't have panic disorder. I think if you don't have generalized anxiety disorder, you're not human, but I don't have panic disorder. So I have foundational anxiety. I never had a solid foundation. So I walk through life a little bit worried that at any moment the
yeah.
bottom's going to fall out. And that is not an irrational fear because it has happened to me my entire life.
Mm.
My worst case scenarios have happened.
Yeah.
They always say, oh, your worst case scenario. Yeah, yes, it does, because it has. So when your foundation is unstable and you're a child, and the first stage of life is trust versus mistrust,
Yeah.
and the second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt.
Yeah.
If you don't come through those okay, you have foundational anxiety. And then in the new book, I coin defensive hypervigilance trauma
Mm-hmm.
because you're so trying to keep shit together because if you can't trust your parents in your first 5 years, you can't trust the world.
Nope.
That's how it works. That's how insecure attachments start.
You
So,
know, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you in terms of the hypervigilance, but I don't think it's, I think attachment is, you talk about words that are overused and or that are misused.
oh,
I think
yeah,
attachment falls in that category.
it is becoming that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Attachment styles are becoming the new love languages.
It is.
And it's
And
sad
I
because
think
as a
those are abuse tactics that can be used against you. Yes.
yes, they are. But without attachment theory, and attaching to our parents, we are biologically driven to do this. If we look at
Yes.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a
Yeah.
basic need, and it's the foundation of the triangle. So I used him because I love him as,
Yes.
as I have foundational anxiety.
Mhm.
I don't believe that the foundation where I put my feet is solid ever. So I've grown up always having Plan B, who I now call Plan Bay, because Bay will take care of me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't need to be different. I used to think I needed to not have a plan B. I function much better having one
Yeah.
because it makes me feel safer in plan A. So
Mm.
I don't, there's certain things that I think there are clinicians that think that's not healthy. You need to change that. You need to trust. Well, if the only avenue for me to trust, because you don't know what foundational anxiety is, because it's not in the books we learned, and you haven't experienced it, and plan B helps me stay in plan A, then let me have plan B.
What does your plan B look like?
My plan B would come down to more about being in a relationship or not, because my career is so solid and my world is solid. But for me, again, it comes down to attachments or where I'm in love. So it's hard for me to trust anything enduring when there's 9 marriages between both of my parents.
Mm.
And I have failed at marriage in the past.
Mm.
So I am not married. I am very much in love. He's like, are you going to cohabitate? Well, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think I need a she shed. I think the way that
So you need a way out. You need a
that's
separate
plan
something.
B. Let's say I'm upset and he's in the house and I hear him moving. I am not going to be able to process the way I need to. Because as a kid, like Little Orphan Annie or Pippi, or even Rapunzel, who I mentioned in all of my books from Tangled, I really need my body to be out of the conditioning energy of somebody else's frequency for me to
Mhm.
find my core. And
Mm.
I need that. And I'm not ashamed that I need that. And my she shed doesn't need to be bigger than a 10 by 10. but I need a place to go where I can be alone with Sherrie and find my core, so that when I enter back into the cohabitation, that I'm coming in clear on what my triggers are. And personally, I'm an INFJ, but I need my body to be away from someone else's body to do that.
Do you feel like that has stayed constant, or do you feel like that has decreased over time?
If anything, it's increased over time.
Really?
I really value my inner dialogue.
Okay.
It's hard to, I don't meditate because I'm too hyper, but journaling is meditation for me, or running. I don't like to run with others. I don't like to journal next to someone. Like if I need to go meditate, I don't need someone banging around in the background. I need the solace. I need to
Yeah.
find that peace so that I don't activate people pleasing triggers and I just go, oh, nothing's wrong. And then
Yeah.
I walk around where something's actually really wrong and I'm not saying anything because I don't want to disrupt the waters, which is a habit. So all of these things that I've done, I've recognized that these are very healthy coping skills for me. I don't need to move to Zimbabwe. I just need to go to the backyard and hop in my she shed for a little bit. I don't even want to write my books with someone in my space.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean,
Right? Like
creativity is one thing. Yeah, that's like, yeah,
yes. And I
absolutely.
think that healing and relationships are all creative. So if I'm going to
Mm.
bring my best self into a creative dialogue, then I need to go identify, where does this trigger intersect with my past core wounding? So I'm not projecting the onslaught of my whole life onto this poor person because
Mhm.
I got triggered. I need to know where those intersections are so that I'm not bringing basement behavior to the first floor, right? So I need to go be alone. That's deep freaking work.
Yeah.
And when I'm alone, it's much more quick. And I really am at a place where I really truly love the relationship I have with myself,
Yeah.
where I can say, I'm not going to go attend an argument. I'm not going to attend. That person needs to cool down. I need to cool down. I and many other survivors can be very sensitive and defensive because we were always told we were wrong when we
Yeah.
weren't. So we feel this need to just defend ourselves.
Yeah.
And I don't want to attend even that within myself.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I like my body and my partner's body to have some separation, a lack of conditioning of the other's energy. Emotions are contagious. So
Yeah.
that would be plan B for me, is I need to go have a moment um and detox from my own shit that this trigger caused before I go in and I am someone I don't want to be. I have control over that, right? So I just need space to regulate.
Okay. What happens if you don't get it?
I will pause the talk. I'll say, let's put a pin in it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to not
Yeah.
bring my best self to a dialogue.
Good.
So I can let it go and still love you. I don't split on people.
Good.
I may not like you right now, but let's just put a pin in it and
Yeah.
give me a glass of wine. And then I'll like everybody because it takes one glass of wine and I'm pretty happy. So I do, or I'll try to use humor even,
Mhm.
like let's just put a pin in it. This is not the time to bring out all of our uglies. Like, let's just enjoy the night. We're
Mhm.
adults. Let's adult. So I put a pin in it. I know me better by this point that I need to put a pin in it. I want to be rational when I show up to attend a conversation.
I think that's fair, and I think, the part that you're putting so eloquently is like, when you kind of grow up in this families of chaos,
Yes.
there's a part of you that as you're healing in your recovery, you're learning how to disconnect or
Yes.
detach, and it has to be done so that you can recoup yourself energetically.
Yes. And when I can do that, so that the guys here, of course,
Okay. Okay.
when I can do that and I'm allowed that space, When I was growing up, I had to attend every argument because it always seemed to be about me. And I didn't have choice to not attend the gossip, to not attend the argument. Was forced. And
Mm,
whenever I wanted to be alone, I wasn't allowed to be.
mm,
I would get that enmeshed, invasive, we're talking about this now, so now I've just learned to value the quiet and the answers. I want answers. I don't want to fight. I want to bring some value to the conversation so
yeah.
that whoever's on the other side of me is experiencing the real truth of me, how I think, even if my thinking's wrong. I'm okay for it to be wrong. I might be misperceiving something, but rarely are we wrong when we're going and finding our truth and seeking it. It might not be that everybody understands it, but
Yes.
I just want to bring the truth of who I am. And then that person gets to understand me better. And then I get to understand that person better. But
Mhm.
I'm done attending arguments that are non-productive,
Yes.
so I love this office would be what I would want my she shed to look like. And, my partner really loves me and he really knows that I would need something like that.
Yeah.
And he also values his alone time. We're both introverts.
Yeah.
So that does help us together. And I think just getting to know someone, we've been together almost 8 years. I've not married
Nice.
him. We're raising kids in 2 different
Oh,
counties. I don't really need the togetherness every day. I'm enjoying this time in my life. I want to suck it up because I have the rest of my life to live with someone every day. So I'm enjoying my time with my daughter and I love his boys and it's all working out. I think when we really learn what our needs are and we honor those, it not only do we take care of us, but we take care of everyone else passively because we're not
yeah.
bringing shit in that is
Yeah.
uncomfortable or conflict creating.
Absolutely. And I think that's again another great eloquent way to put it, but I think it kind of goes without saying that when you experience some severe relational PTSD,
Yes.
that has a forever impact on how life plays out for you, even in healing.
It does. I wrote a chapter. I was asked to write a chapter for these two beautiful men. And their book is called Man, You're Crazy. And they're
Mm,
both ex-cops. And they both have significant trauma from that field. And one of them that I'm very close to said, I didn't even know until you how toxic my family was.
mhm.
And that when I got PTSD from getting shot, that it awakened CPTSD.
Yes.
And they combined and he had a suicide attempt.
Mm,
And men don't have the same permission to be emotional or the
they
same
don't.
permission to be vulnerable.
That's
So
true.
I'm so thrilled to be a part of this book because as shunned as women can be, I love men. And I
Yeah.
think that men have hearts and I think they're misunderstood. Their brains are different. Oxytocin's different. Um, and they're not dumb, they're different.
Yeah.
So to write a book and help even a different community, because we all have trauma, we all have parents. You know why my TEDx talk got such a huge response? Because it really did. It probably got the biggest response of the night because
Yeah.
everyone has parents.
Mm,
Everyone. Not everyone has ADHD. Not everyone is a photographer. Not everyone is a mother. Not everyone is in conflict. So the other speakers were incredible, but Larry, the amazing moderator of mine, was like, people were crying. It was a
aw.
12-minute talk.
Yeah.
And I had a line of people approaching me wanting to, like, I didn't know this was a thing that people talked about or wrote about. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know it was a real thing.
Good for
So,
you.
and helping in this book and watching my friend Kevin sort of awaken to his own trauma. And he had someone in his family abuse him on social media, and he showed it to me. And it's like, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yes,
Parents need to do better. They need to raise themselves before they raise children. Um,
absolutely.
so it has been wonderful being able to have this voice. Natalie, you know me so well. Like, I never thought I'd be doing any of this. I was the
Yeah,
loser kid.
yeah,
So I just feel blessed, and I feel so humbled and so thankful that my voice even matters in this world. It
yeah.
never mattered at home. So it's a healing thing. And I feel grateful. I'm less
Uh,
afraid than I used to be, and I know
yeah.
myself really well. And I think we all need to give ourselves permission to heal in the ways that we know is best for us, regardless of how any clinician or anybody may judge things.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is normal anyway?
Yeah,
If it
yeah.
works for me and it's not unhealthy for anyone else, then it's working.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I do agree because I agree. I do get some judgment sometimes from my therapist, and she's like, you know, people, those are your experiences, and people don't think your way. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how
And
to
I'm going
take
to
that,
agree to
but
disagree.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
my
it's
therapist has been incredible. She's a
yeah,
psychoanalyst,
yeah,
actually. She did not live through a toxic family.
yeah,
I've been with her for 10 years, and she's like, she refers me to people. She hands out my books like candy.
yeah.
She's like, this is what I love about her. She goes, I have learned so much from you.
Oh,
And that's a nice feeling. I learn from my patients too. It's
yeah,
clinicians, we can't humble ourselves to be open to learning
yeah,
in a dynamic relationship.
yeah.
We should be learning from our patients every day.
Absolutely,
They should also
absolutely.
be offering us things that we never thought of.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Dr. Sherrie. It's
Welcome,
always
Natalie.
good to have you on. So, and thank you for so many like words of wisdom. I'm super excited to watch your TED Talk when it airs,
Me
and
too.
also of course, to support your book when that's released. So tell
Thank-
everybody where they can find you, and
Yes, so you
if
can
you have
find
anything
me.
going on. Yeah.
Yes, drsherriecampbell.com is my website. Dr.Sherry for both Twitter and Instagram. I just started Twitter, or not Twitter, TikTok.
X.
I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
that I'm very good at TikTok. I've never
Yeah,
done
me
Twitter
neither.
or X.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Facebook is Sherrie Campbell, PhD. And I have
Okay.
a huge, loving, beautiful following. If you really feel like you need support, do that. And I have an incredible top 1% podcast. And it's called
Ah,
Therapy Sessions Cutting Toxic Family Ties. And
yes.
people are raving to me about how they've gotten more out of my podcast than therapy, which is such a compliment because it's definitely not
Uh,
designed to be therapy, but I'm just glad it's helpful. If I can
yeah.
help in the ways I can, then
I
great.
love it. I love it. Any new upcoming projects outside of the book that people should be on the lookout for?
So the new book, and I'm starting to write a workbook.
Oh,
They're
what?
working on my coaching. I don't know what happened there. So
Oh,
I'm going to start writing a workbook, and I'm
okay.
really
Good for you.
excited about this workbook because I think how-tos, I put them all through the book, but I'm going to make this more of a really workable process, and
Yeah.
I need to do a pretty creative outlet on it. And I
I
think it's
love
going to
it.
be great, but it's going to take me some time to write. So I'm doing that.
Yay. Good for you. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Natalie. I feel the same, honey. You're one of my favorites. So thank you again for having
Thank
me. I appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you. All right. So, Dr. Sherry and I had, of course, a lot to talk about, and I really appreciate her for speaking so candidly as always. And I feel like the listeners who listen to this show can definitely relate to some of the things that she and I were talking about. And I can't emphasize enough that how excited I am. That her book is going to drop. Of course, I will definitely put it in the show notes. The link to purchase the book in Amazon, of course, an affiliate link. And I will definitely have to go ahead and buy my copy as well because I'm so excited for the book. But anyhow, of course, again, I want to wish you guys a happy holiday. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with us. And I look forward to chatting with you guys next time. Until then, you guys be safe, take care of yourselves, and lots of love to you. Bye for now.